Yes, I would like to use that as a segue to my second question. You live in Broome County in New York, which is one of the five New York counties that leaked information from the governor's office suggest may be the first subject to intensive unconventional shale gas drilling or fracking. Are geological factors the main reason for this decision-making on those five counties? Or what is the basis for this decision-making? And from your point of view, what is the appropriate way ahead?
You're referring to a June 13th report in the New York Times that was supposedly a leak from the governor's office that suggested that sort of fingered or sequestered five counties on the Pennsylvania border for preliminary drilling, perhaps, once the environmental impact statement and regulations have been worked through and made final in New York State. And the second thing it did was suggest that communities that the drilling would only take place in communities that, I'm not sure about the exact terminology, but in a sense, welcomed drilling. This is a whole complicated topic in New York State, of course, and this leads us also to Pennsylvania because there's a almost identical issue there. In New York State, there's an interpretation of state law that says towns can perhaps ban or otherwise sequester or limit gas drilling. So, for example, the town could say, well, we have an industrial zoning domain where gas drilling could take place, and we have a residential domain where we don't think drilling would be a good idea. It seems quite clear. Well, the towns can't say, this is how you have to drill, that you have to you can only drill this deep, you have to use certain chemicals, you can't make noise after 9 times like that. That's generally and completely interpreted and implemented as regulation of gas drilling. And important opinions, which I believe, say that there's a separate part to this that says where gas drilling can take place. That's a land use issue as opposed to a how you would do the drilling. There are two cases in New York State that are extremely active and two others that are becoming active that relate directly to this. They're known as Dryden and Middlefield, where the New York State, the first level of the court, has said, yes, towns can ban drilling, either in certain areas or completely. And I'm not sure which of those two options those two towns took, but in any case, they had chosen to ban drilling completely in at least part of their towns. There are two other towns, Avon and Binghamton, that have raised similar issues. They're slightly different. So, but my interpretation is there are four places in Binghamton, in New York State, that have said we don't want drilling, or we don't want it in certain parts of our community. This is being all challenged in court in a variety of ways. The parallel to Pennsylvania is in Act 13. Act 13 said you can't do this. The community cannot say we don't want it. Not allowed, not permitted. That was recently challenged in court, and the initial judgment was that part of the law was not upheld, and it will almost certainly be appealed. And we'll wait and see. My guess about New York State is this is going to take a couple of years to shake out. So my interpretation of how this relates to drilling in the five counties and any drilling in New York State is that the drillers may very well wait until there's clarity about this issue. Their argument is that if each town could say drilling yes or no, they would be extremely limited as to what they could do, because the gas, of course, crosses town boundaries, pipelines cross town boundaries, and so on and so forth. So they would much prefer regulation at the state level, perhaps also because they have a better handle on how to work with or lobby state government with regard to regulations, and this is obviously an important issue. They've had huge influence on New York State law in 2005 for compulsory integration, forced pooling, also in 2008 on the exact nature of the horizontal drilling legislation that is currently being reviewed for environmental impact. So there's a tight parallel between New York State and Pennsylvania as to whether or not local citizens, in their exercise of what's called home rule, can say, this is not good for our community. This is not consistent with our town's plan, comprehensive plan, not what we wanted. This has already interestingly happened to some extent in Pennsylvania in another way. There's a recently discovered shale formation near Pennsylvania. I'm not real familiar with the geography, but it includes Bucks County. Near Philadelphia, which includes Bucks County. There was a rapidly passed legislative bill in Pennsylvania, passed this last spring or maybe early summer, that said no drilling down there. And of course, a lot of rich people live in Bucks County. I think it's quite clear that they're not interested in gas drilling in their backyard. And so this is in direct conflict with the approach that the state of Pennsylvania has almost exclusively taken, that the state controls gas drilling. It can happen anywhere in the state, uniform regulations, and so on and so forth. So, in effect, the legislature gave tacit permission to the communities down near Philadelphia to have some protection against gas drilling. And this is extraordinarily interesting to me because the general stance of both the state of Pennsylvania and more or less the state of New York historically has been gas drilling is a good thing. It produces energy, and it produces a kind of energy, perhaps, and this is explicitly stated by administrative folks in both the New York Department of Environmental Conservation and the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, is that this is a better kind of energy than others that we have.
So do you feel that then economic factors seem to be as important as geological factors in the decision-making process?
Sure, and I would actually characterize it as political factors. My take on this right from the beginning, when I've been involved with this in New York State since 2008, has been that the entire process is about 90% political. Most people think of, gas drilling, hydrocarbon extraction, resource extraction, as, well, let's see, you've got geologists first. And then they'll tell you what the deal is. Well, that's a little bit true in terms of the detailed mechanics of how you go about getting this, but whether extraction should be done, whether it should be done in a particular kind of way, at a particular rate, in a particular dense proximity to where people live, and whether other forms of energy, for example, renewable energy, solar, wind, etc., should be encouraged in opposition or as an alternative to fossil fuel. These are all political issues, long-term political issues. Some of us that are as old as me remember the energy boycotts, the energy embargoes of the 70s when the Middle Eastern oil-producing companies put various restrictions on imports to Western countries of oil, and made things all go topsy-turvy, raised the cost of fossil enormously. So it's from my point of view, it's 90% political.
Okay. One final question for you. How do you rate the importance and responsibilities of the scientific community in studying the environment and health impacts of fracking?
They're both extremely important, and probably the importance of the responsibility of the scientific community is huge. The importance to provide appropriate information, health information, so on and so forth, is certainly very big. But the responsibility to do so is huge, I think, because it's quite clear in retrospect. That is, well, let's go back close to 100 years when coal was king. And what happened with coal to the people who were directly involved, miners, was black lung. The miners didn't live very long. They lived for maybe up to age 50. So they were cheap throwaway labor for the industry. The scientific community fairly quickly came to understand this, medical community, but nothing was done about it because, well, we had to have coal. We had to use coal to generate electricity. And so the miners were, even though the scientific and medical knowledge was extremely well known very early on in coal, nothing was done about it until a competitor came for coal, which was first oil, and now it's shale gas. So that is completely driven by political and economic considerations and not by what we knew about the science.
Well, you're one of the founding members of, like me, of Physicians, Scientists and Engineers for Healthy Energy, or PSE. How do you see our role in facilitating scientific inquiry and then disseminating the best vetted scientific evidence to the communities, including policymakers, the media, and the public?
I think our role is huge. I am not aware of other organizations with as focused a mission and commitment as PSE has. There are many other organizations, Physicians for Social Responsibility. In England, the place is the Tyndall Center, that deal importantly with this. My judgment about those is that they don't have quite the right balance between scientific knowledge, what's in that paper I just wrote, for example, and educating both the public and policymakers. Both are extremely important here. Both are extremely important. Generally, the focus of large environmental NGOs tends to be on the policymakers. If we just educate the senators and the assemblymen and so on and so forth, they'll certainly figure out how to do the right thing. Well, we all know how that works. Sometimes it works okay, sometimes it doesn't. The constituents of the senators and the assemblymen and so on and so forth are not the NGOs. The constituents are the people. If and when they have the right sort of information, they'll be able to speak with their representatives in important and powerful ways. So I think, I guess I definitely see PSE's role as trying to facilitate both these things, not just one over the other.
Thank you very much, Stan Scobie, on a Sunday for taking this time to talk with me.
Good to talk with you, Adam.